Welcome back to Coffee and Conversation. And yes, I have a cat in my lap. He hopped in as soon as he saw me turn on the camera. I have modified my setup a little, which I think may be why we're having more Audie time, because now he has a little warning. I move this setup, which is my old camera. Turns out I like it better than the new one, but I do have to rearrange. So he sees all of this going on. I sit down and he is 100% clear that a video is happening. And we all know how he loves being in the videos. So I think basically what he's got is a lot more forewarning that videos are happening. Plenty of time to hop up, get into my lap, beat me with his tail, just in case I've forgotten who the star of the show is. But I think, I think essentially I'm giving him what he wants, which is fair warning that we're about to film. Now, he's been very happy lately because we had a period of about 3 weeks when it was unseasonably cold. We got snow during this period, and the snow stuck to the ground, which is unusual for this area when we get snow, because it hardly ever stays really very cold for very long here. It usually melts off quite quickly. Audie, on the other hand, doesn't really like the snow very much. So I think when we had that 3-week period, he was probably quite unhappy. Now that it's warmed up, it's become more characteristic of what he likes out there, which is daytime temperatures in the 40s and 50s. And for my UK friends, basically, if he gets daytime temperatures above 0 Celsius, he's happy. When we start to go below freezing, for us here it's 32, for you folks it's 0. He's not pleased. He does not want to have to go out and get his little toe beans chilled on the ground. So I think he's actually just a little bit happier. He has a little more warning as I am starting up the videos. And yes, naturally he is going to share his illustrious presence with us. Aren't you, darling? Yes, you are. I know. Yes. Audie, ruler of the known universe and all the mystic realms. All right, we are going to take a quick look at the intro, and we will be right back. I'll go down. Okay, I guess that's a no. We're going to stay here for a while. So, thanks to the miracle of video editing, it looks like I was able to quickly and easily remove Audie from my shoulder. No, I wasn't. I really had to persuade, cajole, and bribe him to leave. So, let's get back to the topic at hand. Last week, we started exploring the topic of organizing. We've done videos on cleaning and downsizing and decluttering. We've been all around the subject of organizing, but it's something that, for whatever reason, I never really got into. And as I mentioned last weekend, it was the result of a viewer comment saying, I need help with this. Well, heavens, we all need help with this. I would say that there is no one on the planet who has David Beckham. Okay. No one on the planet but David Beckham who has a perfectly organized environment. So I started off by showing you my sock drawer, which is the most organized of all of my drawers because I relied on little organizing cubbies that go into the drawer. And As I mentioned, they're very inexpensive. I usually get them in sets of multiple organizers in different configurations for somewhere between maybe $15 and $20. Well worth it. And yes, I know it's not an essential purchase, but for me, the value is absolutely there because this $15 or $20 purchase allows me to see what I have in my drawer. And if I do not see what I have in my drawer, well, I'm going to go buy something that's already in there. So yes, pay for themselves time and time again. However, we also took a look at my tank top and nightshirt drawer, which was rather a mess, even though I had worked very hard to keep things organized. So, once I got that video uploaded, I had nowhere to hide on this. I mean, I was sharing that mess with all of you, so I had to deal with it. First thing I did was I pulled out about a dozen tank tops, just took them out, put them in a box. I'm going to go through them this weekend. All of them are going to be donated. I just want to make sure that, they're all properly, well, they're all clean, but some of them, because they were crumpled in that drawer, are probably going to need to be spritzed and refolded so they're suitable for, being donated. That was a big help. The other thing I did was I bought more organizers, and I got organizers specifically for the drawer and the purpose, for which I was organizing it. I will go and snap a photo of the drawer. I'm not going to take it out and throw it on the bed, mostly because Audie is far too interested in what's going on here, and I think that would be too much of a temptation for him. But just going to give you a picture and insert it so that you can see exactly what the finished product looked like. These new organizers were about $18 for a set of 12 of these cubbies, and I only used 3 or 4 of them. No, it was more than 3. 4 or 5. That's probably how many I used. But I got them so they would be sized appropriately for what I needed. And the remaining unused cubbies just go right into the closet. There will probably be another drawer because I have 3 drawers in that dresser. And the other drawer, and that's where I keep my shorts and leggings, that's not a problem for me. That looks very well organized because shorts and leggings are larger. And it's a lot easier to organize larger clothing items. So, between a bit of creative downsizing and the acquisition of some little cubbies that were just not all that expensive, I now see where everything is. Got rid of loads of tank tops, have enough room in those cubbies to go off and buy 2 new tank tops. And you got to know I'm going to do that. That's my little reward to myself for having solved the storage problem. But I was looking at that thinking, this is great. I find this system works beautifully for dresser drawers. It's a similar system that I use for toiletries and bathroom products. And I can throw in extra toiletries, shampoo, things that I need. I need to keep them, but I don't use them every day. My iron, my clothes iron, I want that in a cubby. I don't want that floating loose in a cabinet, mostly because where all these things go is into my laundry cabinet, and they are, at upper cabinet height. That's why I don't want the iron loose, because you get something that high up, and yeah, one false move, and your clothes iron is dropping on your head. Not a good plan. That's always fairly well organized too. So I realized I am a cubby organizer. I have a lot of trouble mentally approaching a large organizational space. If it's too big for me to just hold it in my hands, I feel a little overwhelmed. So I have to break it down and organize things into little cubbies. Here's a little cubby. I can hold that in my hand. Then I pop it up on the shelf. One cubby done. My laundry cabinets will hold 2 cubbies on each shelf. So there you go. Half of one entire shelf done. There are 3 shelves. So there you go. 1 cubby is a 1/6 of my organizational job, and I'm happy. But this is a template we can transfer to other things. For example, when I was talking about my drawers and my toiletries, same thing, same general principle. I've just transferred it to another part of the house. But that's not the only area that we look at and think, oh, I'm tired of these things falling out on top of me. Closets can be very hard to organize. Kitchen cabinets, again, very hard to organize. Refrigerators. I thought we'd start talking about how to approach this type of storage. Just what attitude to bring to it, what to look for, what to think about, and then maybe later we'll get into the real nuts and bolts. This is how you get the job done. But when you start working on things like kitchen cabinets, the conventional wisdom has always been keep things where you use them. So you have your dishes. You want your dishes either next to the stove, which is where you cook your food, or next to the dishwasher or the sink, which is where you wash your dishes. Either way works, and I guess it just depends on, how you do things, what is more important to you, to grab that fresh plate as you're cooking on the stove, or to be able to conveniently put it away from the draining rack on the sink or the dishwasher when it's clean. And I've mentioned this before, I've known families that kept their dishes next to the table where they ate because that worked out for them. And in fact, when I was young, some of you will remember this, I know you will. When I was young, my family had one of those old Formica tables. It wasn't old at the time. This was new. This was like a trendy, elegant thing. A Formica table with the chrome legs and the brightly colored Formica surface. And it had drawers in either ends. And this is where my family kept the silverware. Obviously, this wasn't the good silver. Good silver was in a box in the dining room. But this was the everyday silver. It was right in the table. The fact that people made tables in the mid-century with silverware drawers tells you that we've been trying to work out systems like this for years. I personally would not like to have a silverware drawer in my table. That would not work for me at all. My family was large. There were a lot of kids, and that drawer, because it was in the table, was at a child's height. You could go into the drawer. I could go into the drawer when I was quite small, dig out a spoon or a fork on my own. It worked. It was convenient for me. For me now, not at all. I do not do anything relating to silverware over on my kitchen table. My kitchen table tends to be more of a craft table, to be honest with you. But even if I were in the habit of eating there, I still would not consider that to be something that works. That was one of my family's systems, a storage system I grew up with, that I completely rejected. There were other storage systems that I love. So, just to throw this out, because this isn't what we're talking about, but it's a storage system that works perfectly for me. When I change my sheets, and yes, remember I was fighting with my cat to get my sheets changed because it was cold, so he didn't want to leave the bed, so he didn't want me to take the sheets off. When I get my sheets washed and pressed and put away, what I do with them, and this is something I picked up from my family, is I will take all of the sheets that go with that particular bed making. So the top sheet, the bottom sheet, all the necessary pillowcases, and I have a lot of necessary pillowcases because I have a cat who needs plenty of pillows. So it'll probably be the top sheet, the bottom sheet, and then maybe 8 pillowcases? Yeah, probably 8. Yeah, probably about 8 pillowcases, because we got to keep that cat happy. And I will package them up together. Everything will get folded, and then that top sheet will get folded into a long rectangle, and I will wrap everything up in that. So it's a little sheet bundle. You go into the closet, take it out, one bundle, everything is there. That works for me. That is something that has stayed with me from my childhood. And I understand the value of that because, as I say, large family, that's how I grew up. Whenever we broke that system, whenever somebody simply went in because they wanted an extra pillowcase or an extra top sheet, and someone else later wanted a set of full sheets, then they're missing whatever piece somebody else took out. So I learned the hard way on that once you set up a system like that, you're golden. You don't even have to think about it. Anybody who goes in and says, I want an extra pillowcase, oh, I'm sorry, change the whole bed. That's all there is to it. I don't care if just something got spilled on your pillowcase. It's easier to just change the entire bed and keep the storage system in place. That, I know that sounds counterintuitive, but absolutely, having seen it go down the wrong way in my own family, yeah, you just learn to prioritize the organizational systems. So back into the kitchen, which is what we were supposed to be talking about. A lot of things will become readily apparent. For example, you look at your kitchen and say, this is completely disorganized. Some things should be jumping out at you. Are you keeping rarely used appliances on your kitchen counter? If you're one of those people who might, mix up a cake batter every 2 months, but you have a giant mixer sitting on your kitchen counter, yeah, you're not maximizing your space. You don't need that mixer. And I know that our generation is used to that because our mothers and grandmothers had those mixers on the countertop. That's where they lived. But the reason for that was they were using them constantly. That mixer was their version of our blender or our smoothie maker or our food processor, whatever it is that we are using regularly to prepare food. It made sense for them, but that's something that just doesn't make sense for most of us. So unless you are constantly cooking, mixing up things, I say cakes, but there are so many other things that you could be mixing with a mixer and making it sensible to keep it out on the counter at all times. Unless you're one of those people, a real Betty Crocker in the kitchen, it probably doesn't make sense. moving that mixer along with the massive bowls into a pantry, into a closet, into a cabinet, even if it's an upper shelf on the cabinet where you have to take a ladder to climb up there. It's not that big a deal to climb into an upper cabinet for an appliance you're only using every 2 or 3 months. That's what those upper shelves are for. They are for things you are not grabbing every day. The lower shelves are for the things you're grabbing every day. So that's part of the thought process. When you look at your storage needs, your organization needs, look at the things that jump out at you, the things that are giving you trouble. And as I say, in the kitchen, it's usually the stuff that is sitting on your countertop. I keep a bread box on my countertop. I don't know why. I don't keep bread in it. But I like it. It's got a wonderful vintage look, and it's just so cute. Yeah, I got to think about that. I mean, I really have to think about it. I have to either decide I am going to store something I do use all the time in that bread box, because it's sure not bread, or it's going to have to go somewhere else. But gee, it's so cute. And that's where we start running into the problems. It's like, I know it should go, but I want it to stay. But I know it should go, but I want it to stay. In general, in areas like your kitchen or your bathroom, and for me, the bathroom is more problematic. You know, I've spoken to you about that countertop. Oh, what a killer that is. When we look at our inability to keep these areas organized, it usually boils down to the fact that we think we need quick and immediate access to a lot more than we really do. If I were to go into my bathroom, I would insist to anyone that I am using every last one of those things all the time, every day. I'm not. I'm not. Absolutely not. I think I am. I believe I am. I know I am. But is that reality? Have I convinced myself that I am using all of these things? I have a box of tissues. One of those, they call them the vanity box, the square boxes where the tissues just pull up out of the top. I have a box like that in the bathroom. I don't think I have changed that box in, maybe 4 or 5 years. What that tells me is even though I must have those tissues in the bathroom, I don't use them. If I used them, I would be changing that box out constantly, because every other tissue box in my house is changed constantly. Not that one, because it's in the far back corner. Why am I keeping it there? I don't know. It just seems like I need it. And I think we all have things like this. Things seems like we need it. I have a bag of makeup in my bathroom. That should probably get relocated to those laundry cabinets where all the rest of my toiletries are, like, the 42 tubes of toothpaste, because whenever I see toothpaste on sale, I'm going to buy it. My theory is you're always going to need toothpaste, so buy it, store it, you never run out. And people thought I was crazy, but COVID came along. Turns out all of that weird toiletry hoarding paid off. So yeah, I should relocate that. That should go into the bathroom or the laundry cabinets. Get out of the bathroom. There are so many other things like that if I just actually looked at how often I use it. Am I using this? Am I opening this box even? If I'm not using it, if I am not opening the box, why am I doing this to myself? I need to look at that. So for other people, it may well be the kitchen. Are you one of those people who keeps a a jar, a pot, a container, whatever, full of utensils on your kitchen counter? Yeah, I do. Are you using them? I don't. Most of mine are just pretty little things, including the container. The container is an Asian brush vase, so it's designed to hold things like this. And the spoons that are in there are just highly decorative wood spoons that I picked up here and there. That's an art piece. That's not legitimate cooking utensils. If somebody went in and grabbed one of those lovely spoons, oh, I think I'd have a heart attack if they tried to stick it in a pot. So I need to look at that. Do I have enough counter space in my kitchen to allow me the luxury of setting aside even a little corner for an art piece? Good heavens, probably not. I need to rework that. I need to think about that. We all have them. It's just a question of identifying them. And I would say, if you are looking at your space saying, this is disorganized, start with that question. Go into your space and say, am I using this? Am I really using this? Because remember, I already told you, I'm going to say yes to those tissues, even though the reality is I can't be using them. If I were using them, I'd need to change the box out all the time, right? Be honest. Don't try to kid yourself. If you're not using it, you really need to think about why it's there. Yes, maybe some things that are only used occasionally do need to be in your kitchen, in your bathroom. I'm not going to argue with that. I have a bottle of rubbing alcohol in my bathroom on the counter. That is going to stay no matter what, because rubbing alcohol, you end up with a cut or a scrape and you want to clean it, and you want to clean it over the sink so you're not bleeding all over your carpet, etc. No, that'll stay where it is, mostly because I'm going to buy myself that extra space by getting rid of that tissue box. But I do understand that some things that you don't use every day, or that at least you hope you're not going to be using every day, do need to stay, because when you do need them, you need them immediately. So yeah, you go in your kitchen and you're looking around at things you can get rid of. Well, don't put the fire extinguisher on the list. Yes, you may never have used that fire extinguisher, like from the moment it went into your kitchen, but let it stay, because when you need it, you do need it. So there's no need to be like crazy or brutal about it, but just ask yourself, is it going to be the end of the world if I move this out of the way? When was the last time I used the mixer? How often am I using the blender? Yeah, when I first got it, I used to use it all the time, but maybe you haven't touched it in a few months. Maybe either you should start using it, or you should look around for a better location. Now, I have to do this myself, and certainly if I did this in my bathroom, it would make my life a whole lot easier. But we'll have to see if I have the self-discipline to just carry forward with that. I don't know. I have a feeling that tissue box is still going to be here next weekend when I let you know how well I've made out with this. But at this point, all we're really doing is looking at the approach we need to bring to the problem. We are acknowledging that there is a problem. We are trying to assess exactly what the problem is. And from that process, the solutions will almost always fall immediately into place. So we are going to pick up on this again because, like I say, organizing is such a bugbear for most of us that I think it is well worth the time it takes to look at this, look at it objectively, because, as I say, my storage techniques, many of them come from my family. Some of them come from my aversion to the way my family handled these things. So just knowing that much, you already know that I have an emotional investment in the way I store and organize. And that can be hard to break. But of course, we have to be practical. Emotional investment in one way of doing things is fine if it works. But if it doesn't work, we need to cut that cord so we can move on and get ourselves in a better situation. All right, we are going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. Thank you all so much for being with me today. I'm glad we got a little bit of Audie time. I was expecting, to tell you the truth, that Audie would come back and demand more attention, but he didn't, so I got a chance to make the video. Yay! But I imagine we will see him tomorrow as well, because warm weather means the cat is out looking for his close-up. All right, thanks for being with us. I hope to see you again tomorrow, and in the meanwhile, have a terrific day. Bye.